It's the internet, you're busy, so let's do this. Welcome to the GamesBeat Decides podcast. This is the podcast where we decide everything about the world of games so you don't have to think for yourself. I'm your host, Jeffrey Grubb. With me is Anthony Agnello. Did I say that right? I feel like I got it perfectly incorrect.
You got it perfectly in one, Jeff.
All right.
Everybody always gets the Italianness incorrect, but you nailed it.
Agnello. There we go. And Jason Wilson. Say hello, Jason.
Your bass beat that you played down there with that intro music makes me want to get my tuba out.
You should. Honestly, you should just actually do that for us from now on. Play our intro music live every week. I'd appreciate that.
Lord.
In this week's episode, we're going to talk about the news, some games, and the history of killing Nazis in said video games. First, though, I want to thank everyone for joining us. You can get more from all of us at GamesBeat at GamesBeat.com. If you have something to share with us, email the podcast at gamespluspodcast@venturebeat.com. That's the plus sign. If you're watching on Facebook, you can subscribe to this the audio version on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Stitcher, a bunch more. And finally, if you are on one of those services, give us a review. It helps people find the show. Let's kind of just jump right into it. I've been playing a few games, but is there anything else you guys want to talk about? Anything you've been up to in the past weeks that you guys have been enjoying?
I feel like we're going to be talking about the game of the hour. I know that both you and I have been playing it, Jeff, and I don't know if Jason started it. I know that you have your hands on it now, Jason, but I feel like Sonic Mania is I was going to go with like some kind of horrible 80s and early 90s advertising pun to be like, Sonic Mania is taking hold. But I think
that was the intent there. I think Sega was going for it. You might as well just embrace it. Embrace the brands.
Well, when it comes to Sonic, this has always been my policy.
Uh-oh.
It's a trap! It's a trap!
Man, do you just have that sitting around so you could do that? Damn it, Jason.
Jason, I think it used to be a trap. I think the age of Sega coming in and promising us, because this is the difference. Sonic Team always laid the traps. Mm-hmm. Sonic Team constantly came in and said, "Oh, we've learned our lessons. We know you don't want Sonic Blast, so we're going to give you Sonic Adventure, which has all the sweet Big the Cat and Strange Robot and Amy Rose you desire." Oh no, we were just kidding. You don't need Sonic Adventure. We're going to make you Sonic Unleashed. You guys wanted Sonic to be a werewolf with some kind of... It looks like he has rickets or something. I don't even know why he walks that way. Those are all Sonic Team.
It's a werewolf who rides his bicycle to work. They've been reading my fan fiction. So yeah.
Finally, they gave you everything you wanted.
That's right. I was the one person calling for that, and I apologized many times. I'm not going to do it again. You're right. It's the Sonic cycle. People get into it. They think the next one's going to be okay, and it never is until now.
But this game is made by victims of the Sonic cycle.
Exactly.
Who took matters into their own hands.
I have a far different opinion of Sonic because I was never into it when it first came out many years ago. And, I was playing, my D&D Gold Box games. So, when it comes to Sonic, for me, it's just been something that's never been special. But I'm going to check it out because my son, he's 7, and he's very interested in what Sonic is. And I can't really explain it.
Yeah, how does that happen? This is the great curiosity to me, is still, every day, it seems like there are new Sonic fans made, and I just have no idea how that is physically possible.
Yeah,
what's that?
Jason's
comic
got
books.
Is it the Archie comic books?
He sees the comics in the library. He sees the comics in the comic book store whenever we run in that way. And he, I may not like the Sonic games, but I enjoy some of the music, and he'll hear it on one of my playlists in the car.
Some good music, for sure. So, okay, well then let's get into Sonic Mania. That is one of the games I've been playing. I haven't played it a ton, but I got into it far enough to get to that boss battle that everyone is just like okay with mentioning exists, but it actually won't detail in any ways, and I don't think we will yet either because it is a big spoiler. But I'm glad I played it before I got spoiled, and everyone else should as well. It is the Sonic game I think Sonic fans from the original 16-bit era have been waiting for. This is the series at its peak, but also returning to its roots and doing a lot of interesting new things, but within the framework that always worked in the first place, where it's a character that does go fast, it has a lot of momentum. If you're stopping to kind of like look around and explore, you're probably playing it wrong, and that's okay. I'm kind of into it. I never loved Sonic before. I liked a few of the games here and there, Sonic CD and Sonic 2 and stuff like that. But I could have taken it or left it, at the time. So to play this and actually be like, oh wow, I think I might really like this game. It's sort of surprising, and I'm happy that's the case.
Yeah, man. So this is the funny thing. A friend of mine described Sonic Mania in his review as playing like you remember Sonic playing, not as it actually played. And I can attest to the truth of that statement, because not that long ago I just set up a not brand new, but a new to me Sega CDX.
Oh wow!
Which was one of the units that combined the Sega CD and the Genesis into one little thing, and I busted out all these Genesis games that I either had never played or hadn't played in years, including Sonic 1, 2, 3, Sonic and Knuckles, and Sonic CD. And I can tolerate playing them for about 20 minutes.
Yeah.
That's a long time.
Get in there. It is, especially for those games. 20 minutes is freaking, a good solid fifth of Sonic 2.
Yeah.
And all of them are gorgeous. Jason, you said it. The music in those old games is so good. I mean, hell, Sonic CD, the best part is the soundtrack, whether you're playing the Japanese version or the American version. The music in that game is stellar. But the level design, as sort of inspired as it is in the sprawling architecture meant to accommodate the weird movement of this character, is so cool. But it's kind of miserable to play. Like, the constant accidental deaths, the weird arc of Sonic's jump, it's just tedious. At the end of the day, it's way more fun to watch classic Sonic games than it is to actually play them. Whereas Sonic Mania both looks like a classic Sonic game, but better, and is actually fun to play. It's really interesting to see how they, sort of softened the hard edges of that game. There's a little bit more of a forgiving feel to the jumps in Sonic Mania than in the old games. It gives you the impression of classic Sonic without really being that. It's kind of a whole new game. Jeff, did you get to, and this isn't spoiling anything, people have seen this in some of the previews, the earliest footage they showed of the game, one of the areas you go to is like TV studio.
Yeah, that's where I'm at. That's what I was playing earlier. It's the last level I kind of got to. I got to the second act of that zone. It's cool. Really great. It's really excellent. There is so much happening in the foreground and the background, and it's all themed it's called Studiopolis, and it's themed as a TV studio. You're jumping off cameras. You're going through satellite like feeds and things like that as Sonic's bouncing past them and stuff. It's really well done and well thought out. And it is the time where it was at that point in the game I'm like, wow, someone, the designers of these stages visually just worked in such a cohesive manner to bring all of this to life and have every aspect of it feel like alive and beautiful and still fit in that Sonic style. It really blew me away.
Yeah, there's never that moment that you get in an old Sonic game where either you feel like the game sort of cheated you out of what you were supposed to do, I couldn't find the special stage that was going to give me the Chaos Emerald, or I, got trapped in some kind of piece of geometry where, I can't get past this dumb casino platform. There's never a moment like that in Sonic Mania, and I've only played through 3 of the worlds and started the 4th, but I am amazed at how well considered every little inch of it is, because like you were saying, everything in the foreground in the studio stage, there's these big glass panels that are just exploding as you run through them.
Felt
and
really good.
It's so
to do that.
Cool.
Mm-hmm.
It looks so cool. But at the exact same time, that could just be the sort of visual flash that gets you killed in an old Sonic game. And here it just...
So I have a question for the two of you. I know a fellow named Christian Whitehead, who was a huge Sonic fan and big in the scene of folks who are remaking the games with a... did he improve upon original games and fix those mistakes in his fan versions, or were they just ways to play them on more modern systems?
Well, he very famously did a conversion of Sonic 1. That was actually he did the version of Sonic 1 that was on iPhone. And
I know that.
Yeah, and that version is in a lot of ways more playable than the original Sonic.
Yeah.
It's very, very soft changes, but
yeah, it's not the same thing as what happened here.
Yeah, it's not this. And kind of don't notice the changes in that until you put it next to other really crappy ports of Sonic 1. Like there's the Game Boy Advance version, which was done by Dimps, who also did the catastrophic Sonic the Hedgehog 4, which came out back in 2010 as 2 episodes for PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360.
Still waiting for episode 3.
Yeah, episode 3. It's coming soon. Coming this fall, right after Sonic Forces. No. But yeah, Jason, it's not nearly as dramatic as this.
Yeah. He definitely was. He experimented a little bit there, and he brought it. And this is like the culmination of everything he's learned.
Yeah.
Is it fair to say that this is the best Sonic game that's come out on a console of any kind?
Well, I mean, come on, dude. Sonic Boom for Wii U, the game for Wii.
No. I mean, let's be fair here, because if I remember right, folks enjoyed Sonic Colors back in 2010.
Sonic Colors is a very, very good game. I think Sonic Colors for Wii is a superior game to Sonic Generations, which also had a lot of defenders. I think that in terms of just sheer physicality, your hand touching the controller, making something happen on screen that's not in the real world, Sonic Mania feels better than any Sonic game ever made.
Yeah.
And I haven't played much more than an hour of this game, and I have no problem making that statement without equivocation.
And it's not just that; it's almost breaking new ground in terms of how you would want to do a rejuvenation like this. How Mario's had the new Super Mario Brothers series, and that's starting to grow stale, and it feels like Nintendo doesn't know what to do with 2D Mario now that Mario Maker's come out, and Mario Maker I loved. But it seems like they're not sure where to go with that, and for the first time it seems like maybe Sega is showing the way of like, you can work in those old frameworks, you can bank on nostalgia and get those fans back easily and hook them in, and then surprise them with, and this is very Nintendo-like, at least in this way, in terms of Sonic Mania, with new mechanics in every stage that are often bespoke and are used and are super fun and then forgotten immediately, and you're okay because you got that taste, and you're already onto something new that is equally as impressive and entertaining. So, there's just a bunch of stuff happening here that is all kind of Sonic at the top of its game. So yeah, I mean, for me, I think it's going to end up being my favorite Sonic, but I was never a huge fan of the series in the first place. So I'm going to be excited to hear what people who have loved the series end up saying. But you could tell that people are just going gaga for it already, just based on the reaction that people are having to this, a very visceral and emotional reaction. Like, I've been waiting for this my whole life sort of reaction. So
I've got 2 questions.
Okay, and then we should move on after that, because we can't talk about Sonic Mania all day. But yeah, 2 questions, then we'll go.
So, is this a reflection of how all this new PC gaming blood at Sega? I mean, it's not new, but I mean, it's certainly been a different direction from Sega from its tradition, has been influencing and bringing in what is effectively a modder to help make this game. Is that a reflection of how PC gaming has influenced Sega?
Huh. Jason, I don't necessarily, I know what you're saying. I would say that Sonic Mania is less this sort of end result of that, so much as it is one more substantiation of it. Mm-hmm. I feel like, Sega, if anybody watching really isn't, super intimate and with, Sega's sort of arc over the past decade, Sega almost closed for good back in 2010. And they shuttered their entire European operation. They closed down almost 70% of their business, and it really didn't look like they were going to do much at all anymore besides make Total War games and sort of contract out to PC game developers like you're talking about, Jason. But over the course of that time, they've constantly been experimenting with that sort of open development atmosphere of PC gaming. They started with their HD remakes of classic games. There was Jet Set Radio HD and Nights into Dreams HD. And they were like, oh, we had some success there. But not quite as much as we wanted. And then they, just in the past 2 years, took all of these old Sega Genesis games, just dumped them on Steam, and said, not only can you buy these classic Genesis games for cheap, you can sell your own mods of them. You can make my favorite was, I'm sure you guys saw this at some point, but somebody made a version of Streets of Rage 2 where all of the sound effects were just replaced with Tim Allen making his sound effect from Home Improvement. So every time you punch somebody, it would be like, ho, 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 ho. So
I love that.
Oh, it's funny for about 10 seconds, and then you're like,
I'll play the whole. That's the only way I'll ever play that game. You shut up.
It's the only one. But I feel like Sonic Mania is one more experiment in this sort of process of fixing their company. And yeah, go ahead, Jeff.
And I think that's right. I mean, in terms of the PC gaming perspective that they're bringing to all of their products now, that I think that's the correct way of putting it. But it's also an entirely different perspective of Sega realizing it does have this heritage and these loyal fans who love it, and that those loyal fans have now gotten into game development and are Christian Whitehead, and they're renowned, and they should be not just like finding these people and saying, we're going to work with you. They should be putting them in charge of entire product lines like Sonic. Say, just you are in charge of Sonic now. In the same way that fans are in charge of things like Star Wars at Disney, or like, the entire Marvel lineup at Disney and things like that. Those things have had so much success because the people creating the products around them love the products growing up. They are the fans. They inspired them in the first place to do the things they're doing today. And so they understand on a base level why these things work. And Christian Whitehead understands on a base level why Sonic works, understands better than probably almost anyone on the planet. And he's making this game, and it's like the evidence that was a good idea is right in front of us now, where I could, like, if I played the game a ton and I went back and looked at it, maybe I could vaguely explain why and what they did works so well, but he just inherently knew, and this is what we get. So there's something to be said for yes, there's something coming from the PC gaming aspect here, but it's just something about using your fans as an asset, as a resource, and yeah, I think Sega's finally realizing that can work for them.
Now, here's my second question. Lots of people online have said, you all need to let go of Sonic. It's been too long. It's gone on forever. But you take a look at this. You've got people saying that about Call of Duty, and Call of Duty's a third of its age, and then you've got people like myself who are so into Dungeons and Dragons that I'm just as passionate as I was when I first played it, and that's a 40-year-old IP. And then you've got Star Wars, which I'm still almost as passionate as I was when I was a child, and that's another 40-year-old IP. Is this argument that it's old and it's done and it's had its time? Is that something that needs to be put to rest?
I don't know if
absolutely.
I mean, was that the argument anyone was really making, though, that it was old? I thought the argument was it was old and it hasn't done anything for you lately. I think that's always the argument, is people say, what was it done for me lately? And for a lot of people, it was real easy to be like, not only has it done, shit in the last several games and it's disappointed you over and over and over, it was nothing to begin with. It wasn't even that good. Mario versus Sonic should have never been a thing. And, I was one of those people. I'm okay to be one of those people. That's how I feel. That doesn't mean that those games shouldn't necessarily exist. I was at a point where I'm okay not understanding any of the fervor one way or the other. The furries who, do your thing. I'm not going to understand you guys, and I'm not going to understand the people that are like still holding that torch for the 16-bit, revival that they're never going to get, which I was clearly wrong there, and I'm okay with that.
You were wrong, my friend.
Wrong.
That happened.
Yeah, I'm okay. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, Anthony, what do you think about that? I don't know.
There is no such thing as too old for a story. A story is only as good as whoever is telling it. Mm-hmm. And, at this moment, Christian Whitehead kicks ass at telling a Sonic story. I think people say this about Sonic and have a chip on their shoulder about Sonic because the fandom of Sonic is very distinct, and I'm not just talking about, you know, the DeviantArt community. You know, Sonic fandom is strange because it is rooted in iconography more than it is love for actual games.
Yeah.
You know, I always feel like the Sonic series is a sort of inversion of Mario, not in terms of, you know, Sega does what Nintendo don't, but because the Mario games were really, really, really good. Donkey Kong was really, really good. Super Mario Bros. 1 was really, really good. And then the merch factor, the mascot factor came later.
Yeah, they found that eventually down the road.
Right, whereas Sonic was conceived to be a mascot first, and then the game came second. I actually, sitting here looking at my deck, Drive Complete Works book is sitting here, and you can see all these early concepts for Sonic. You know, the drawings of Sonic came well before the game design. Sonic was supposed to have a human girlfriend in the original game, by the way. So, you know, all the way back then, the idea was to make a character that was visually striking and visually appealing, and the preponderance of Sonic material since then reflects that.
Yeah.
You know, like, the reason that kids still know what Sonic is that Sonic cartoons and comics and stuffed animals and toys and all the Burger King pack-ins have always been more popular and successful than the games. So when people say, oh man, you know, it's too old, they're saying, well, the games, like, let this die. Let this just be a mascot, and let Sega make something else. But now we have a really strong argument for good Sonic games. I think that when Sonic Forces comes out this fall, somebody asked here in the Facebook chat, well, what do you think the response to Sonic Forces is going to be? The response to Sonic Forces is going to be negative.
Yeah, it's going to be the response we're used to. Yeah, it's going to be the response we've had for the last several games, yeah.
Yeah, so this is not, like, insulting them personally as human beings, but Sonic Team have never had the raw talent to make a really kick-ass 3D game, and they keep trying. So that's why. But, I mean, like, there's nothing that's too old. Call of Duty isn't too old. Freaking Assassin's Creed isn't too old. All of these things, it doesn't matter if you put out one a year, if one a year kicks ass.
Yeah, for sure.
And oftentimes it doesn't.
We should move on. The only other game I've really been playing is Agents of Mayhem, pretty new one. I guess I'm going to talk about it real quick, but I want to ask you guys first, what do you know about Agents of Mayhem?
Nothing, and I didn't even know it was coming out so soon. Yeah. I knew that it was playable at E3 finally. Somebody told me today, like, oh yeah, Agents of Mayhem shipped this week. I was like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
Didn't Saints 4, the PS4 version of Saints 4 just come out?
Now, that was a while ago, but yeah.
So I have no concept of time anymore.
That's fair.
Jeff. It's all a morass.
Jeff, tell me if I'm incorrect in thinking that it's Saint Row meets G.I. Joe.
Okay, that's not too far off. It's definitely more G.I. Joe than Saints Row. There's an open world, but you're not spending a ton of time in that world like you would expect. Let me just kind of give the rundown. So G.I. Joe meets Saints Row is a good starting point. You basically have a roster of superhero/super soldier characters that all have special abilities, typically doing with their guns or their movement capabilities, things along those lines. You start out with the three basic ones. Just a guy who's big, has a shotgun, is good in close range with melee combat. There's a lady who's fast and Brazilian and can jump up really high and dash. And then there's your standard guy with an assault rifle and grenades, and he's a Hollywood superstar or whatever. And those are very basic stuff, basic things you would expect in any action game, and you can jump between them at any point during combat. So this is not a co-op game. It's not really online. It's a single player game where you are three characters all at once, and you switch them depending on your need at the moment. I found that my need in the moment playing with those basic characters so far hasn't really been. There's been no great need. I could kind of get through any situation with any one of them whenever I need to. However, I've started to lock a character here and there that are far more interesting, really cool stuff. There's a bow and arrow lady who just has an amazing feeling bow and arrow that really just kind of blows all the other characters away. I'm like, why would I play as anyone else? And I'm starting to understand, like, just kind of going online and seeing what else is in here. There is a ton of other characters that seem far more cool than the basic 3. And so I kind of maybe came away the first hour or so with a negative first impression, which I don't know how familiar you guys are with the Saints Row games, but Saints Row 3 and Saints Row 4 both had incredible intros. Like Saints Row 3 was that the bank heist or whatever with Johnny Gat and the helicopter and the Kanye West, one man shouldn't have all that power. And then Saints Row 4, you're climbing on a nuke and that damn Armageddon song plays from it's
Armageddon song plays while Keith David tells you what to do.
That's one of my wife's favorite songs. By the
way. I'm sorry, I apologize.
Unironically, Jason.
Unironically,
that's awesome.
That's so perfect. Happy. Yeah, that's the way to do it. But this game
wife is special.
This game was basically just tutorials with, bland enemies, bland level design, lots of purple because it's still in the Saints Row stuff. And then this was just the first level. Once you sort of get out of here and you are picking your stages and picking where you're going and doing the side missions, it does get a little bit more interesting in terms of what you're doing. But really, it doesn't open up until you are with the characters that are far more cool than the basic 3. And that's where I think the real juice of this game is going to come from, is that the open world of Seoul, South Korea, where this game takes place, not that fascinating. The story and the humor and the writing, I'm not loving it so much. I think other people said it was more hit and miss than what I'm feeling. I'm feeling it's mostly miss, especially coming from the Saints Row games, where I really, really dug the writing. Felt very a huge connection to what was happening in those games and those characters. Not getting that here so far. But the action that I'm getting, like switching between these new characters that I've unlocked, that's where it's starting to kind of gel together for me. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to keep giving this more time and see if there's going to be something else here. So I think I'll come back next week, hopefully be able to talk about that in more detail. But for now, I'm like, okay, there's something here. I just maybe it was buried deeper than I was hoping it would be. So
Jeff, that's a real bummer to hear you say that, man. I did not play any of the Saints Row games until Saints Row 4 finally came out on PlayStation 4. And Mashable's Adam Rosenberg just kept calling me for like a year, being like, play Saints Row. Play 3 or 4.
He's doing God's work.
Going to love it. He's doing God's work.
That's right. Yeah.
And I'm like, no, I don't feel like playing.
But that seems like a game you would enjoy.
I realize that now. And there was a moment playing Saints Row 4 where I'd made a ridiculous hulking avatar of myself with Nolan North's voice, wearing a grandma's muumuu, plummeting out of the sky, spread-eagled and flying as Montel Jordan's "This Is How We Do It" blasted in the background. And I was like, that's it. I can quit video games.
Yeah.
This is all I ever needed.
That's so funny, because my avatar for Saints Row 4 was also a very big version of myself, though I made myself as fat as I could in the game. And yes, I wore the muumuu. I had to wear the muumuu. I had to.
I definitely wore the muumuu for like a half an hour at least in that game, yeah. Who didn't?
It's right there. And like Agents of Mayhem, when I heard that it was like going to be canonical with Saints Row, it's going to happen in the same world, Do
you know how that actually works? So I guess
I don't.
In Gat Out of Hell, the spinoff that's not quite as good. I liked it. I liked it fine, but it's not as good as 3 or 4.
The world in Gat Out of Hell is just dumb.
Right. Like, yeah, and then at the end they like recreate a new Earth, because like there's a time travel thing at the end of 4, and this game takes place in that new Earth out of Gat Out of Hell. And the Saints Row, the Saints, aren't really brought up that much, but like they definitely exist, because like the camera is always zooming in on the Saints emblem on the world and stuff like that. So there's something happening there, but it's just not what this game is about, for sure.
It's so weird to hear you say that the writing isn't there too. Because
a lot of the people that wrote the last couple of games have left, is what I understand. So. Yeah, a lot of people left after 4, and it wasn't like any big, wasn't like a bunch of layoffs or anything. I think people were just getting ready to move on to new stuff in their careers, and so that's just kind of how it happened.
Sure. Well, I mean, Volition was sort of part of that whole THQ shakeup in the first place, right? They sort of got jostled around, so it's not too surprising that there was a little bit of churn in that creative team.
Right.
But damn, this is to hear you say this. Be like, yeah, well, you know, it looked like Sansa, but like it has the G.I. Joe thing. This is Fuse all over again. Which, do you guys remember Fuse?
Yes,
I remember it.
Yeah, I don't know if it's quite that exactly, but it's close enough. You're right. It is kind of actually. It's a good analogy for sure. I hope that the back half, once I kind of get in there and I can find the excitement and the fun and the joy, the maybe I'll come out of it feeling a lot better. But for now. The things I liked about Saints Row 3 and Saints Row 4 are not what I'm liking here. So,
what a bummer.
Only other thing I played was PUBG. We had a big tournament on Friday night. You could see stuff on that on the site.
Only other thing I played.
I know, well, yeah. I mean, I played some other stuff.
I play
I got 220 hours and counting. Yeah, I looked at my timer the other day. Some of that's got to be idle time, but yeah, we did a tournament on Friday. We had a bunch of people playing from the developers and game industry pros and stuff like that, and it was a good time. It was my first time commentating and using the observer tools in the game, and it was difficult to do everything at once because those camera tools are still busted as hell. It's an early access game as hell, but I still ended up having a really good time, and everyone really enjoyed themselves. We're gonna keep doing that. I think we're gonna try to do that every Friday night for the foreseeable future. Kind of see where it goes from here. But enough about me. Anthony, why don't we cross off these other two games on your list?
The other two games on my list, one of which is just very, very quick and simple. I've been playing with my Switch a lot. That sounded dirtier than I intended it to. I've been playing with my Nintendo Switch a lot. Because, there's this criticism that the Switch doesn't have any games, and it's kind of bullshit.
That's nuts, yeah.
It's a treasure trove of delightful things, and so while I've been playing Sonic Mania today, I have also been playing in the past week a little game called Strikers 1945, which doesn't look like a game from 1995. It's actually a game from 1995.
I didn't think it was on. I didn't realize it was on Switch.
Yeah, it just came out of nowhere.
This is the Neo Geo soccer game.
So Strikers 1945 is by an arcade developer that really never broke through, called Psychio.
Yeah.
And Psychio, they never really had a hit. Strikers 1945 is one of the few, and this falls in with our theme, Jeff, because you're shooting some Nazis in planes, and it is just the most delicious meat and potatoes arcade game that you could have in the world. I love me an old style shmup, which I don't think is a word that people commonly use.
Shoot 'em up.
There we go.
Not British.
A shoot 'em up. A classic,
we're not British.
Not British.
That's where it comes from.
Jason, you want me to be a real nerd? I've been playing a Tate mode. Shmup. Tate mode. You can actually play Strikers 1945 in Tate mode with the long vertical screen.
Oh, really?
Anyway, yeah, you can.
Yeah, just like you can with Nimco Museum too. Yeah. You can play that.
I didn't know that. Huh. All right.
So cool.
I'm so glad the Switch supports that. That's really interesting. I hope someone does that with a brand new game.
The Switch is a delightful machine.
Yeah.
Switch is, and what's really cool is we're seeing developers taking into account the different things they could do, but not in a way that was so gimmicky with the Wii.
Yeah.
Right.
Or with the Wii or the DS. The first year of Nintendo hardware, I mean, hell, going back to the Game Boy Advance at this point, the first year of Nintendo hardware is a bunch of gimmicky nonsense. Here's the e-card reader.
Right.
Forget DLC, go buy a pack of cards at Walmart. Or here's the DS microphone, now blow into it. In public. Go in public blow into your DS.
Which one of the Zelda games did you have to do that on? I hate it.
I think both of the DS Zelda ones I think you had to do it, but definitely Phantom Hourglass, yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, this is I just like this game because it's like the kind of game you would have seen somebody playing in the background of a movie 20 years ago. It's just the most basic, simple thing and perfectly executed. And it's not crazy difficult. Part of what happened to shoot 'em ups that I really hated was there's the bullet hell tradition.
Right.
Which is just, the screen getting crushed with projectiles all over the place, and you have to sit there and memorize the pixel perfect spot where you can survive. This is far more in the classic tradition of, Gradius from the 80s even, where,
or 1941.
Or 1941. This is Strikers 1945 is a direct antecedent to Capcom's 1943-42 series. But like, it's a little bit more crazy. It's a little bit more bombastic than those. The nice counterpoint is the final game in the 1940 series, 19XX, which was a killer Capcom CPS2 game from '96. Oh, mwah. But yeah, Strikers 1945. If you have $7 and your Switch and you want something that's just like, I want a video game. Oh, it's just perfect.
Yeah, I think I'm going to pick it up for sure. It looks really good.
Check it out. It's the reason I started playing it was the other game which I've been playing and have been attempting to play for 7 months, which is Gravity Rush 2, a series I love. And I adore Gravity Rush. If everybody's not familiar, Gravity Rush is this anime as hell PlayStation series, started on the Vita. The PS4 sequel came out. It's created by Keiichi Toyama, who's the man who created Silent Hill, everyone. The guy that made Silent Hill made a bizarre game about a young lady who can change the direction of gravity with her hat made out of stars. And the premise is amazing. The art's amazing. Yeah, that all checks out. Everything about the game is so fun, except for what you have to do to beat the game. The mission structure is a drag. It's the kiss of death for the open world game.
Yeah, I know Mike really liked the first one, and then he didn't seem as hot on Gravity Rush 2, and we never actually talked it out, so that must have been it.
Yeah, man.
I'm just so horrible at those games. This is true, kids. The older you get, the harder it is to jump in a video game or a platformer.
You don't have to really jump in real life, Jason. You just got to press the button.
I jump better in real life now since I lost the weight that I do in a game.
That just doesn't make any sense.
Oh man, the other thing that gets me in this one, Jason, is I just turned 35, and I'm finally getting to that place where like motion sickness is becoming an issue.
Oh no.
I don't have that problem.
Oh god, it's brutal.
But Dane does.
It kills me, man. Like anything 60 frames per second too. Any game that's been remastered for HD and is running at 60 frames per second, I gotta like leave the room.
Yeah.
I get the whirlies.
But we were just geeking out about Dragon's Dogma and its remaster coming. Is it going to be at 60 or is it going to be at 30?
Oh man, I really hope it's at 30 because I can't even play Resident Evil 4 HD on PlayStation 4. I look at Leon Kennedy doing his little 60 frames per second bob up and down, and I'm just like, no, I can't. In Gravity Rush, it's not as bad. Gravity Rush runs at a pretty smooth 30, but it's the constant changing of direction because you can't just fly. You're changing gravity in these massive sprawling it's basically triplets of Belleville meets Cloud City, Jason. That's the best way to describe that environment. So you're falling all over the place, and there's weird architecture, and you're constantly reorienting the screen, and I just look at it and I'm like, I just need a nice warm cup of lemon zinger tea and some Tums now. This is too much. But yeah, man, that's what I've been playing. Jason, what the hell have you been playing?
Yeah, Jason, give us your shit.
So I'm playing something that is very unlike anything I've ever played yet. In some ways, is very much like the things I love. It's called Citadel Swords with Fire. It's a survival game, but instead of making guns or melee weapons and stuff to survive, you're dealing with magic. So it's basically wizards instead of a lone shooter out there trying to survive in the wild like you would in Ark or in a zombie survival game. Now, these games started getting big about, 2014, Jeff? 2015?
I think 2013, honestly, was the first one, but they got big in 14, for sure.
Yeah, so it's like right now. I've tried Ark over the years a couple times, and I kept dying so early, and I have a hard time finding stuff to craft that it just wasn't fun. Now, this is an alpha, so I'm going to predicate everything I say about it right now. It's shit.
Is it broken or is it just not fun?
Yeah. It's got lots of potential, and for some reason I'm still compelled to play it. But man, it's broken and it's difficult. It's early access, so I mean it's alpha, and you got to give them a break on that. But I'm having huge problems just finding how to level up once I'm about level 15, because I'm either too strong to take on the weakest monsters, and the next tier of monsters I'm fighting are way too strong for me. And I'm not finding how to get the experience I need or the materials I need to craft better things to deal with this level curve. And it's got some things to it that I really like. You can do magic either off of staffs, wands, or gauntlets in your hand, so you can blast fire with your hands out. That's kind of fun. But the crafting and gathering material for crafting has been very soothing. And I find after a long day, especially now that my kids are in school, I find that it's very nice just running around gathering these herbs to make potions. I'm really enjoying that. But when it comes to trying to make progression, I come to this area and I find it has all this rare ore I'm looking for so that I can make some higher level forge, some better stuff. And then it's guarded by dragons with 60,000 hit points, and I'm doing 56 points of damage per spell. So it's like, okay, well, there's some problems of progression here. So I'm going to keep playing it. I'm going to write something about it here in the next week or two. Of course, Hearthstone's new expansion is out, Knights of the Frozen Throne, so that's kind of dominating my life too. And I'm playing with all the new cards. And what's really weird is I'm finding that these new cards are making, just like with every expansion, the best new cards for me are the ones that make older cards playable again. And I just found this really cool deck that's for the warrior called There Will Be Blood, in which
I abandoned my boy! Sorry.
Yes. Which I'm calling it There Will Be Blood.
Okay.
It's a Blood Warriors deck, which your whole win condition is spamming a bunch of arcane giants, which are these special giants. You get 2 to the deck, but there's several cards you could use to duplicate those giants. And at one point, I had 7 on the board. And these are 8 strong units that can't be removed very easily. And it's just a ton of fun to do that, and then your opponent just concedes. And it's usually like a 2-turn combo, and I'm loving that. And then there's this other deck with the priest, which uses a Death Knight, which is kind of the new thing of the theme of this set is, having these new cards and turn your heroes into undead Death Knights that do all kinds of really cool things. And there's this priest deck, which is very spell heavy, and pretty much focuses on bringing out these cards called Obsidian Statues, or one of the really big legendaries from 2 sets ago, which is the Old Gods, Yasharj, which I'm sure I'm mispronouncing, Rage Unbound, which pulls.
No one knows. You could say whatever you can call it whatever you want. No one's going to know what the real.
Yes, I know, it's Wizard Poker. Nobody cares. It's just 75 million people have signed up to play it. That's all.
I don't believe it.
But this game is, this deck is all about getting these really big minions out early, cheating the mana, and then bringing them back. And it just frustrates the hell out of people you play. Of course, if you can't get these combos out, then you die really quick. But it's fun because it's a puzzle, and I really enjoy those type of decks. And last night, I started diving back into Neverwinter, which is the Dungeons and Dragons MMO, because I'm really spoiling to start playing reading something that has the new content for Tomb of Annihilation, which is the new storyline that's coming in September to the Dungeons and Dragons game. It's already in Neverwinter. So I've taken my control wizard and I'm trying to level her up to where I can get into this new area of Chult, which is the jungle peninsula down in the south of the world, and has dinosaurs and undead, and there's undead dinosaurs, and I'm hoping to get to that.
Wait, real quick, you said a control wizard in Neverwinter?
Yeah.
So wait, the control decks, is that a like a Dungeons and Dragons term, like control? Or is that a Magic the Gathering term?
Doesn't it mean balance? Isn't it like
So control is where you want to control the board to set up your win condition. So they take a long time to play.
Yeah, that's what I figured. But does that term?
Lots of spells and lots of big minions. Control in an MMO is an MMO turn. It's not really a Dungeons and Dragons turn.
So they're not related. Okay.
No, and so what you're doing is when you play with other people, your role is to control all the enemy monsters and try to keep them in your.
Okay, similar idea, but not necessarily the same exact thing.
Effect.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a very similar idea. So I'm throwing lots of ice spells.
Real quick on Citadel, you were mentioning some stuff about how it's you're still figuring stuff out. Is there a community that you are going to, Reddit, the forums, the official forums that where people are figuring this stuff out together?
Yeah, there's a Reddit community, and it's pretty much coming down to people who started like when it first went alpha, and for some reason seem to have everything they need, and they're just saying, "Oh, it's over here, dude," and they're not really being very helpful. It's like, "Oh yeah, go to the volcano there. You can kill bunch of dragons," and it's like, okay, but I can't kill the giants that are before the dragons, and I can't kill the undead that's before the dragons. So I mean, I'm looking around here and there.
Yeah, no, it was interesting. It's like PUBG right now, early access game. It's going to come out this year, so it's not quite alpha. But a lot of people are like working together to always figure out what's happening there. Lots of sharing of information. People are always making graphics. I mean, there's millions and millions of people playing the game every day. Yeah. So of course, there's a huge community out there. But I also like learning stuff that I know is going to change, like the way the game plays right now. Before a lot of the vaulting stuff's about to come in, it's going to be very different once that vaulting stuff changes up how you can get around buildings and things. And it's like I'm really getting very good at playing this game that is going to disappear and like vanish eventually, and it doesn't bother me at all. I actually it's very it's in the moment. It's very right now, and it's kind of cool to like be in that experience and know it's going to go away and it's probably never going to come back. I like that.
So Citadel hit early access slot at the end of last month, and to give you an idea of the active player community on my server, the most people I've seen playing at once have been 2, and I'm one of them. Now I find all these big houses that these people have made, and I'm wondering, okay, well, is this game just bigger in Europe? And when I'm playing in the evenings on the West Coast, these people are all asleep.
Yeah, maybe. That's possible.
But that's so weird that there would be no one on the West Coast at all, Jason.
Well, this server. There's a number of servers. That could be the problem. Sure. A small player base, and then you give them 20 servers to play on. It's like everyone who's playing might have their own server for it.
All right, we should get into the news. No, go ahead, Anthony, and then we'll get it.
I was just gonna say, there's probably somebody watching Jason being like, "This guy's on the crappy 65,000 hit point dragon server, and he doesn't even know it."
It could be.
That's exactly what your problem is, right there. All right, let's hop into the news. Then we're gonna go to a break after that and come back and talk about killing some Nazis in video games. We'll hit these news points really quickly. First up, Blizzard has renamed the Blizzard client once again. It was Blizzard.net, or it was BlizzardNet, and then it was the Blizzard app, or I'm sorry, BattleNet, the Blizzard app, and now it is the Blizzard BattleNet, like all 3 words together. You could kind of tell that they were going to go back on this at BlizzCon when the execs were up on stage after the announcement that it was called the Blizzard app, and they were still calling it BattleNet. So, that's kind of a inevitable thing where that brand was just too strong.
To be fair, those people have known it as BattleNet ever since BattleNet started.
1996. It's a long time.
Have been there since '96. To me, this feels like something the Activision part of the company said.
I wouldn't be surprised if that's the case.
Rename this.
Right.
Okay. And then everyone who's part of Blizzard who cares enough to say something about it would say, "Oh yeah, but people love the BattleNet," and the fans, the fans who don't care. They're not going to say anything. But the only fans who are going to say something are be the ones who go, "This sucks," which I'm sure they did very well.
They did, yeah.
And so BattleNet comes back.
Yeah, I think some of those fans worked at Blizzard.
Why?
Yeah,
it's one of those things where when you have Overwatch and the audience that is new to Blizzard comes with Overwatch, why change something midstream there?
Yeah, it was kind of a little too late at that point.
Way too late. If Blizzard had said in 2014 before Hearthstone started, Hearthstone is going to be this whole new initiative for us, and as we transition from the early test versions of Heroes of the Storm to Hearthstone and then Overwatch after that was the moment. Mm-hmm. That was the time. And they waited too long, and now they have a name with a lot of history. Why not hold on to that? Keep the value in it. You know?
Well, and the other thing too is, Blizzard's become an online live services game company.
Yeah.
And to change the name of your online live service app seems really weird.
That's crazy. It's crazy. Blizzard is usually so good about that sort of branding.
I think that's why it's easy to imagine it was some Activision lawyer who's like, it's going to be hard to keep that if we keep BattleNet and Blizzard separate, so we should just go with one of them. And it was probably something along those lines. At least it's very easy to imagine that.
Bobby Kotick had heartburn that day.
That's right, yep.
He was feeling spicy.
Ran out of the Pepsi AC, so he had to do something about it, yep. Ubisoft hosted For Honor tournament, and it ends in embarrassment when the final match consisted almost entirely of players abusing an exploit. It was an incredibly unbalanced ability, and the winner used this almost exclusively and won $10,000. It's rough. It's kind of hard to build a new esport altogether in the first place, and then when something like this happens and all the headlines about it are just what a shit show, what an embarrassment. That's kind of, I'm sure there is coming back from that, but it feels like one of those things where there's no coming back from that. But I don't know.
So this reminds me of two things. The first thing is every time I see a company saying they're going to build it, he's reminded of something that Mitch Dyer, formerly of IGN, now one of the writers for Star Wars Battlefront 2, told me. He said, the community decides what's an esport, not the company.
Yeah.
In one.
Yeah.
And the second thing, this reminds me of Hearthstone in some ways, because while they weren't exploits, there'd be incredibly broken decks that would go and win tournaments. I'm thinking of Patron Warrior, first of all, back before they made a nerf, and you could charge your patrons and win in one turn. Esports athletes know the games better than the designers often do themselves. And they're going to find the ways to skirt every possible scenario that the developers have laid out for how to win a game, and they're going to find a way to come up with something new. And if they find an exploit, they're going to use it, and they're going to spam it till victory, even in front of thousands of people watching them. Now the bigger question here is, I haven't followed this enough, but has Ubisoft gone and changed it yet? Have they removed the exploit?
I don't think they've had time. I think if it's going to happen, it's going to happen sometime this week. But I don't know. Yeah, it feels like one of those things where they'll definitely have to change it, clearly, but how long it'll take them and whether it'll change their typical update pattern, which I don't know what it is for Honor, who knows. I will say that game does have, it seemed like it did have that community esports potential early on, but there was a lot of, I believe, balance problems and connectivity problems that turned a lot of people off in those early days and sort of squandered any of that hope. And now Ubisoft's trying to grasp onto it, is what it seems like. And who knows if that's going to actually work.
Man, okay. I just don't understand what it is about any multiplayer-centric game that Ubisoft has published over the past 4 years. All of them that start with Ubisoft being like, this is it. This is going to be the thing that gets a community that stays. And then everybody gets really, really hyped. And then it's a disaster. The Crew is a disaster. The Division was a disaster. For Honor's been a disaster. And then the one game that everybody thought was going to be a disaster has turned into the best thing in the entire world, which is Rainbow Six Siege. Why isn't Rainbow Six Siege their esport?
It is. They have esports around that game, and that's definitely doing better than this. But Ubisoft, they have corporate mandates. All our games are going to do these things. You have to have the esports. You have to have the online connected universe. You have to have a plan with content that you're going to sell at a later date for at least a year, probably 2 years.
Towers.
Yeah, towers. That's right. Yes. Yeah, I love the towers and the Crew even. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, but to be fair to Ubisoft is, their games are doing this. They come out, they have all this hype, they're really pushing it. They start out like this, and then these online games start coming up as people add stuff, or they fix problems, or they find issues. There's a lot of people who really enjoy playing the Division now. The Crew has a very dedicated fan base of people playing the game.
And the sequel looks good. The sequel looks interesting.
Without a doubt.
Yeah, so I'm sure, give For Honor a year and a half, and a lot of these problems are going to be ironed out.
Yeah.
What is the pirate game?
Skull and Bones?
Skull and Bones, that's what it's called. I'm wondering if they're learning a lesson, because the fact that Skull and Bones isn't being rushed out the door. I mean, For Honor was that even a full year between reveal and release at this point? The Division, the Crew, and For Honor.
Was it at 2 E3s or maybe just one?
Well,
I feel like it was at 2 E3s.
Wasn't the Division like a 3-year burn?
The Division took a while.
Gosh, I don't know. I just remember Dean writing like 80 stories on it.
It was a while. I mean, I don't know. Ubisoft, they definitely sometimes do rush these things out.
It felt like 3 years, because I read so many stories that Dean did and had to edit so many of them.
I mean, yeah, you're definitely right though, Jason, that these games have often found second wins. Some more so than others. I mean, Siege again is the prime example here. The Division and not quite as much. The Crew, then again, not quite as much as well. Yeah. We'll see how Ghost Recon Wildlands, a game that sold very well, and For Honor, like these are two of the top 3 or 4 best-selling games so far this year of 2017. If those games do continue to find that online audience, that could be very good for Ubisoft, and they know something we don't clearly at that point.
Yeah, I mean, just take a look at Blizzard. Heroes of the Storm. It has its reboot, and it's doing so much better.
Yep, for sure.
Sometimes with online games, you just got to give them time to work out their problems and find what it is the players want.
And sometimes you just have to be Blizzard, and that really helps, I find. If I'm just Blizzard, everything just works out for me. PlayStation 4 firmware update 5.0 will add 1080p 60 frames per second Twitch streaming. So not a huge thing, but 1080p 60 streaming is it's very intensive. So I believe it's only coming to the PlayStation 4 Pro and not the PlayStation 4 Standard, which, Sony only ever said that it was going to keep the games sort of the same. It didn't say anything about like Twitch and other services like that. So I'm glad they're not like holding the Pro back in this regard. But then at the same time, it's also a very it's intensive in terms of how much data it uses. You're uploading a lot in terms of your bit rate. And I wonder if people like that start uploading and streaming regularly at a resolution like this will start bumping into Comcast data caps and things like that. That's going to be a bummer, and I hope things like that get sorted out before everyone is streaming at this level. I watch a couple 1080p 60 streams that look really good on Twitch, so I'm hoping more people can embrace this and can get the data speeds that are required for it. Valve's new Dota card game, Artifact. All right, Jason. What's what with Artifact?
Well, what's what? We don't know much at all right now. What I do know is it's not the game that interests me the most. It's what the marketplace will do with it on Steam. Are they going to let people make skins? Are they going to let people, make custom cards that aren't like the card, just the card art, make custom card
or like
art.
Even like just card backs and stuff, like the custom deck art and stuff. But I mean, clearly the most interesting thing here is just trading cards with your friends and then selling cards on the marketplace.
Yeah,
like that's going to be enormous.
Am I going to be able? Well, we don't know if we're going to be able to sell cards.
But come on, you could sell the stupid like collector's cards from games already, like the Steam trading cards that don't do anything. Yeah. They let you sell that shit. They're going to let you sell this. There's no way.
Well, I don't know, because
maybe not.
If you start selling those cards, you're really going to affect the balance of the game.
Yeah.
When you have a marketplace as big as Steam, and that's one reason why you can't sell or trade cards in Hearthstone or the Elder Scrolls Legends or any of the other card games I'm playing. It's because it would just unbalance the game's economy so much. Mm-hmm. And how do you know that these are transactions that aren't meant to just game the system, or somebody is taking advantage of somebody? So I'm a little leery of that, though. It would not surprise me if you're able to do that with your cards. But what I find is going to be really interesting is, will Valve go mobile with this?
I think they will. Yeah.
That's
eventually.
Where you find your audience with card games is going mobile, and that's where you start making your money. Hearthstone really start rolling once it went mobile, and I expect Bethesda's The Elder Scrolls Legends too to start rolling and start making bigger noise now that it's on mobile. It just released on iPhone and Android last month. Excuse me.
I think eventually Valve will make it mobile. It'll probably take a year, but we'll see. Steam has launched over 1,000 games in 7 weeks following the change over to Steam Direct from Steam Greenlight. Does that seem like a lot to you guys?
When they announced the entry cost for getting your game,
$100 per game.
What, $100?
Yeah, per game.
That 1,000 sounds about right.
Yep.
1,000 sounds about right. Where you're gonna weed out the people who are trying to put things on there, which is just like an interactive slice of cheese that you can spin in a circle and calling that a game. This is it.
Yep.
Because what was it before?
10,000. Yeah. I mean, I think it was less. It was fewer. So like more and more games are coming on here as the system opens up more and more, which makes sense. I think Valve is making the choice specifically to let more games on there. It doesn't want to be the gatekeeper. I'm looking at it to write a story maybe about this where, Google just got fined $2.7 billion in Europe for like moving a search result from the top page like down a couple of pages. And that was just, you could still find it in its search results, and they still got, the biggest antitrust fine in the history of the world. And I wonder if Valve lawyers are like, we can't be the gatekeepers when we own this much of the PC gaming market, because for one point, it's almost morally wrong. You can't be the ones deciding like what games succeed and which ones don't. That's actually wrong at a certain point. But beyond that, it could be a violation of antitrust rules where they have their own games on that system. If you are going to buy a game on Steam, you are ostensibly competing with Valve's products, and if Valve won't let you on there to compete with its products, that could be a problem for them. So I wonder if that's one of the reasons why they continue to be more and more open, as opposed to just everyone's like, they don't want to hire humans, which I'm sure they don't. But like I don't think that's the underlying reason for all their choices when it comes to this kind of stuff.
I just think about 1,000 games in 7 weeks, and I think if I go down to my corner store, there are 1,000 items in the whole store.
Right.
Yeah, for sure. But
and I find that so daunting.
Yeah, but when's the last time you ever go into the new releases section of Steam? Who does that? There are some
every week I look.
Why?
But like, what do you do when you're looking?
Yeah.
Are you downloading things?
It's just
I shiver.
I shiver,
and I think about how much man hour, people hours was put into these games, and how few of them are going to get seen. And I feel very sad.
I know, but like, how many websites get made every day and no one ever sees them? And it's like, Google still is going to track them and still going to show them to you in the search results, or 50 pages down. Yeah, it's all the same thing.
Reminds me of when I used to walk into a used bookstore, that was like really, really well stocked, and be overwhelmed by the idea like there are 20,000 paperback books in here. Oh my god! And the romance section has, because I was always naturally going to the romance section first. It was like, all right, well, there are 500 other books and then 600 Danielle Steele books. And so somebody is sitting here trying to compete with that monolith, no matter what. And, man, there's always going to be far more creation than there is time to actually consume what is created at the end of the day. Right?
Yeah, it's just like let go of that notion that you can get everything and just let the algorithms wash over you. Give me what you give me, algorithm.
I just went into the new releases and saw that I have a game, Western Loathing, which I didn't even remember buying. And it just came out last week, and it says I loaded it, and I don't even remember it. And I was thinking today, I need to buy and load this.
Jason, are you sleep shopping on Steam?
You gotta stop taking the Ambien before you get on Steam, man.
But that's Steam for me. It's so overwhelming, and I understand why people want to put their games on Steam, but at the same time, I've seen a couple people on Twitter talking about, indie devs are starting to think, maybe we should go on the Switch first, because it's easier for us to stand out there and then bring our game over to Steam.
Yeah, that's a viable option. I think that was kind of always going to be the case. The consoles are a good place for indie developers to stand out if you can get there no matter what and no matter when. They were doing it on the PlayStation 4 before they were doing it on the Switch and the Vita as well. Yeah.
Have you looked at the new releases on a PlayStation console lately? That's getting overwhelming too.
It is. Yeah. That's why I like the Switch so much. Discovery is still easy.
Yep. For now. That'll change. That'll change soon too. Finally, DeepMind and Blizzard have opened up StarCraft 2 as an AI research environment. Basically, StarCraft 2 is now a laboratory where almost anyone can use this API that Blizzard and DeepMind, which is the former Google subsidiary that's working on deep machine learning, where machines can learn to beat humans at Go and chess and things like that. They work together and they made this API. People can hook this into their own self-made programs that are designed to figure out how machines can learn to play StarCraft 2, how they can get better, or even just pre-program sort of artificial intelligence and test how that works in the game. It's kind of like, one of the steps we have to go on before we just let the machines take us over. So let's just get it over with. I mean, this is the way to do it. So I'm all for it.
Here's my question. What's the gameplay value here? What can people do with this when it comes to the StarCraft 2 gaming scene?
Well, I mean, clearly, they're already pitching it as you could create bots that are more human-like. You could create bots that could easily beat you without you knowing that they're a bot. Pass the Turing test in this game.
So that means that this is just another way for people to make bots.
And then that's not. I mean, look, I'm not going to pretend like I understand what the potential here is for StarCraft 2. That's how they're saying. That's what they're saying early on. Who knows? They just opened it up. Let's see what happens. I don't think that's really even the interesting thing here. The interesting thing here is machine learning, how to understanding what it means to be good at StarCraft 2. Because you think about StarCraft 2, and it's not just about winning at the end. You have to make decisions early on that affect the very late game. And these computers, the way they work is you program basically just what you want them to understand the best win condition to be. So it's like you want to be the last character standing, the last player standing in this head-to-head StarCraft match. So do anything you can to get that win scenario. And they'll keep trying everything. They'll play millions and millions of matches back to back to back against themselves. And you're going to be able to see how a machine over time is going to learn that decision it made to set a base here or to start mining this thing here had an impact, and why that matters. And when it starts creating those links, that is the essence of deep learning. And that it's very powerful, and it could have deep implications to how machines fit into our lives. And StarCraft 2 is just a very good gateway to getting to that point.
And as we saw at the International, someone's made a bot now that can beat some of the best Dota 2 pros in the world.
Yep.
And that's kind of scary.
Yep. Without a doubt. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to go to a break. We're going to come back, and we should make this pretty quick because we've already been going for more than an hour, and I think I said we'd be 45 minutes today.
That's my fault.
That's okay. No, I think all of us just kind of got going on our own topics, and it was a good time. But we're going to go to this break, and we'll be right back. Whether developing, playing, or simply hosting games on a server, Intel makes it happen. And Intel wants to make sure the biggest innovations in gaming continue to happen on the PC by giving developers a hand with the Intel Game Dev program. All you have to do is sign up, and Intel will provide the resources necessary to help you continue to innovate and make gaming even more amazing.
Oh, yeah.
Head on over to the Game Dev program at software.intel.com/GameDev to get started. Again, that URL is software.intel.com/GameDev.
Huh. I didn't realize that the Switch just goes into rest mode if you leave it in the cradle.
Yeah.
I had Sonic running, and now it's... Jason, how is Namco Museum Collection? Do I need that?
Not unless... Okay, so the reason why I bought it was a fantastic way to introduce some of the games to my kids.
Sure, yeah. I mean, I want my daughter to be able to play Rolling Thunder at some point, but we're like a decade away.
Yeah. Otherwise, if you want to play games like Galaga and have it up like this, like an old arcade cabinet, then yeah, it's worth it for that.
Man, I wish there was just a few more. Like $30 for what's there is tough.
Mm-hmm.
I love Pac-Man Versus.
but like,
I almost want to just get a GameCube out and like get a Game Boy Advance hooked up to it and do that. Yeah. I kind of almost just want to do that.
I'm 2 GBAs shy of having the setup to have Pac-Man versus.
Yeah. So wait, was it okay? So was it? I thought it was one Game Boy Advance and the
yeah,
and the Pac-Man plays on there and the Ghoster on the TV. I thought that's how that worked.
I wait. I thought you did it like. I thought it was like Final Fantasy Crystal Chronicles, where like there's one person who's playing on the TV.
I need to Google it actually, because I can't remember. I definitely did it. But by the way, we're back. Hey everybody.
Hi.
Pac-Man versus.
Yeah, we're gonna talk about. Yeah, that's fine. All right, Google.com. Pac-Man versus GameCube.
I thought we were talking about.
Games. It's not my fault I came back to you guys talking about Namco Museum Collection thing.
Just happened.
Yeah, no, yeah, it's totally. So yeah, it's like the ghosts are on the screen, and they're in like 3 little circles up on the screen, and so they're all playing with GameCube controllers, and then Pac-Man plays with the very simple 2D map on the Game Boy.
Oh man, I can do that right now.
I wonder how much that game is. They gave it away for free.
No, it's dirty cheap.
All right,
like,
very
it was
cool.
With Pac-Man Adventure? No, Pac-Man World 2.
Yeah.
Pac-Man World 2, and then Versus is just packed in.
All right, very cool.
Awesome.
Okay, yes. Yeah. So we're going to talk about killing Nazis in games, and I guess the reason we're doing this is quite serious. Actually, we will make light of some things, but we're not going to make light of what happened over the weekend in Charlottesville. There was basically a white supremacist rally was happening, a Unite the Right rally. It got out of hand.
Nazi rally.
And it very much turned into a Nazi rally. No other way nothing else to call it. They call themselves that. They did the Hitler salute more than once. And all of the points that they are, used as talking points were classic Nazi propaganda. Things got out of hand when one of the people who came from Ohio, I can't remember his name right now, he came from Ohio to attend one of these rallies, decided to drive his car into a group of counter-protesters who were there to stand against these people.
No, he did not decide to drive his car. He decided to purposely injure people.
Yes, he decided to he became a murderer in that moment, and he's being charged with second-degree murder. He murdered one person, injured 19 others, and it was a tough weekend to see that. It was made no easier by lack of leadership from the White House, which was kind of a super bummer to see, but not unexpected in any way. And it's just gotten worse since then. Today, I don't know. It's just kind of like gone down the drain. President Trump came out, did a statement saying, yeah, Nazis are bad, when he was reading from a teleprompter, and now today he has kind of doubled down on coddling and giving sympathy to these Nazis. So what we often do, at least for me, is kind of retreat into entertainment in times like these. I like to watch The Rocketeer because they kill Nazis in that movie, and I like Indiana Jones because they kill Nazis in that movie. And I grew up on entertainment where Nazis were the carefree bad guy. You could kill them without having to worry about a thing, because what's the moral qualm here? It's all like you're all in the right no matter what when they are the bad guy. It's like them, zombies, in more recent movies like sex traffickers and things like that. These are like people that are all very bad without question. So what I wanted to do here is kind of look back at the history of Nazis in games, and then maybe pick some of the best ones that were our favorites growing up or more recently. Any one of those. Do you guys want to start? Do you guys have one that like jumps to mind when we bring this up?
Oh man, I've got my one, and it's perfect because Jeff, you talked about like sort of retreating into fiction and retreating into entertainment to sort of protect yourself from the horror of real life monsters. And the thing that I've sort of always loved about entertainment is that it's an effective way to really fight against monsters like Nazis. I mean, Captain America wasn't like after World War II and seeing, this drawing of Steve Rogers punching Hitler in the face. It was 1941. And the wonderful thing that fiction and entertainment and self-expression can do is it can take the seriousness of these people away from them.
Yeah.
Make them look ridiculous. It's like the FBI's actual plan of using the Superman radio show in the 1950s to make the Ku Klux Klan seem ridiculous so that nobody would ever want to associate these people, because not just because you're a evil scumbag for thinking like they do, it's that you're also embarrassing.
Pathetic. Yeah, you're pathetic.
You're pathetic. And my favorite Nazi killing video game of all time is Bionic Commando by Capcom. And it's the NES Bionic Commando. And in Bionic Commando, you play through this game, and it's sort of it's fanciful. You're a guy with a ridiculous grappling hook arm, and you fight soldiers who are everywhere, and you have this spiky Goku hair, and it's just a ridiculous action game. And then when you're in the towns, you actually see Nazis. You see these Nazi officers, and they're kind of terrifying. And then you go back to shooting bad guys, and then you get to the final stage, and there's a cryogenically frozen Hitler sitting there as the final boss of this game. And it's this bizarre moment of something pathetic and cartoonish, because you see like this body of Hitler like floating in a tank, and then it drains out and he comes back to life, and he's giving commands to his generals, and you're like, oh shit, this is serious, Adolf Hitler is back. And then you blow up his spaceship, and then on the NES of all things, the last thing that happens in this game is you grapple hook off of a ledge and shoot a bazooka into the window of a helicopter that Hitler is escaping in. And in NES graphics, you are treated to 5 freeze frames of Hitler's stupid face slowly exploding in horrific graphic detail. And it's perfect. It's awesome. I cannot encourage everybody enough. Go on the PlayStation Network and Xbox Live and download Bionic Commando Rearmed. It's not, the face explosion is not as good in the remake, but it's a great
only a CRT could handle that for sure.
You gotta have scan lines for that magic. But that,
go find one on the side of the road somewhere.
Yeah, just go get one from your local recycling center. They're giving them away. And this was I want to say Bionic Commando came out in '87, so it's 30 years old this year, and that is 6-7 years after Castle Wolfenstein, which is Castle Wolfenstein for PC. Was that 80?
Well, the original is 81.
81.
No, 84. Excuse me.
Is it that late? No shit.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
So there.
No, you're right. No. The port I played was 84.
Was 84.
The original was 81. You're right.
81. Is that, Jeff? Is that the origin of all Nazi fighting in video games?
Yeah, I mean,
is it Castle Wolfenstein?
You think I would assume so. I'm sure it might not be. It's not necessarily for sure the beginning, but it's for all intents and purposes, it's the one that everyone's going to go to when you say what's the beginning here. Castle Wolfenstein, and then it was Wolfenstein 3D that had Mecha Hitler actually,
right.
Which was just a great moment as well, where it's like. Again, it's almost like turning these real world evil people into something absurd, where it's like, okay, Mecha Hitler, you're kind of it's not necessarily making them look pathetic and like a clown, although it's absurd, but it's also just sort of being it takes them to a point where it's hard to believe that they were ever actually real, which is, I mean, maybe it backfires a little bit today when you have to deal with them in real life, but at the time, you're like, yeah, these people are so absurd. Yeah, of course, he probably was riding around in a giant mech suit and taking people out with his dual Gatling gun arms or whatever. So yeah, I always appreciated that. But I mean, in modern day, I think that series kept going and just kept getting bigger and better. And then Wolfenstein, the New Order, I believe, Wolfenstein: The New Order, just absolutely was just a great way to spend a couple of hours. And a cool story and a cool environment, just taking these guys out every which way you can imagine, with all kinds of fun guns, in a very visceral way with knife combat and melee combat. I love that game because it was very much about the humanity of the people fighting the most inhumane thing. Such a great story and such great characters. And then it was just always punctuated by these great combat moments where you are guilt-free taking out some of the the scum of the universe. So
Man,
that whole franchise kind of nailed it.
If you had told me that the new Colossus was going to be the most politically relevant game of 2017,
yep, never would have believed it.
Nazi and Klan.
Yep, together at last.
So, I have a a very different viewpoint when it comes to playing Nazi games where you kill Nazis than the two of you might, because I am Jewish.
Right.
But the Wolfenstein games were always a power fantasy for me, and a little uncomfortably so. Because the level of enjoyment you would get from those would just be a little too much. But the games that I always enjoyed fighting the Germans, fighting the Nazis, for me were always naval games. And turns out one of my favorites was the Sudden Strike series, where you're playing a submarine.
Not familiar with this.
Well, it's sub warfare.
Huh. So
you're seeking ships. And, the Germans were always the best at sub warfare, but you get to turn it on the head, and you could, depending on the way you set up scenarios, you could be seeking their ships. And the other game in which I really enjoy naval combat when it comes to seeking ships, is of course Wargaming's World of Warships, because there's lots of people who like playing the German ships. I tend to play the American ships, and I tend to single out and go after the German ships over the Japanese ships or other American ships or other British ships or Soviet ships. That's the way I play it.
Can you still play this? Is it easy to access these games, Jason?
Well, of course, World of Warships is a live game.
Sure,
a couple of years ago, I reviewed it. The Sudden Strike series hasn't been around for almost a decade, I think.
A long time. But is it a good old games feature? Can you go there and check it out? I guess if it was only a decade ago, you could probably go on Steam still.
Yeah, you might be able to find things on Steam. I think the last one was on Steam. I think you might be able to find some on Good Old Games.
Another game I always kind of think of when I think of the way that games often just use Nazis as fill in, to just drag them and then make them the go-to bad guy, is Nazi zombies in Call of Duty. I wasn't a huge fan of how it's branched off and become like the other thing in Call of Duty. It's a fine horde mode, but at the time, as a bonus at the end of Call of Duty Black Ops 1, I think, to kind of get in there and have, I think you were like this Richard McNamara. You played like a bunch of like real world people, and like I think Richard Nixon. They had all these like voice impersonators doing a really good job, where you would be in this room and they were attacking you, and it was a really weird thing. I mean, that might have been Black Ops 2, but either way, it was very kind of interesting to have this game that was kind of trying to take itself seriously with its sort of psychological warfare storyline, and you didn't know what to believe, one thing or the other, and then it was like pretty big surprise ending, and the credits rolled, and then all of a sudden you were fighting an undead horde of Nazis. It was kind of an interesting way to cap off that game. Something I kind of wish more games would do something along those lines in terms of having a surprise at the end of its credits, but I understand why you can't do that. Regardless, it was but you could see how, like, even now, like, no matter what, throughout the rest of the Call of Duty series, even when the games have nothing to do with Nazis one way or the other, the zombies are always also still Nazis, and it's just kind of like, peanut butter and jelly. They can't pull them apart if it's too well together.
But I think American game designers need to focus more on the Klan.
Yeah. Yes, this is a really good point.
Separate, the white supremacists who rose out of the Confederacy's loss out of Jim Crow, and that needs to be more of a focus than Nazis at this point. Yes, you've got the Klan coming out in the new Wolfenstein game, but that's still an alternative reality where the Germans won, and therefore the Nazis are in America, and therefore that enables the Klan to have its grand comeback.
Yeah.
But we don't know all the details because the game's not out, so can't speak much more about that.
We have at least seen in the past year the very real success of Mafia 3.
Yeah, that's the game I was going to bring up as well.
And the fact that Mafia 3 A You know, like Mafia 3 has its problems, but there are two things that are incredibly encouraging to me about Mafia 3, and it's the fact that Take-Two is even willing to make a game on that scale with that kind of investment and make that story is so encouraging. It's a dramatic change from the industry as it was even 10 years ago, where big publishers like Take-Two were so adverse to any kind of risk in terms of subject matter. You know, it's not even like that they didn't want to be controversial. They were perfectly happy to have the controversy of, Grand Theft Auto or even a bully, because that was a way to get your work noticed. But this is challenging stuff, and it's equally encouraging that the audience responded, that people were playing this game, that people were excited to experience the perspective of a Black American in the 1960s and having to know what that world was like. I want to see more of that, and I really hope we do.
Well, I mean, speaking of seeing more of that, I mean, do you have any faith that Ubisoft will do right by Far Cry 5?
Man, who knows? Because Ubisoft does not shy away from doing something that is, bombastically provocative, but the Far Cry stories are not exactly known for their nuance.
Nor is the setting of Montana really a place where you can take on the racial divisions of America.
Well, I mean, I would disagree with that, because there are plenty of Mountain West extremist white supremacist groups. It's not the Ku Klux Klan.
But
it's not the Nazis.
What I mean is, there's not going to be a lot of black people around there. There's
right.
going to be a lot of Mexican people around there.
This is exactly the point, though. I played the game at E3. I played the game at E3, and there were multiple black members of this cult that I had to shoot, which just, to me, is so tone deaf. It is so dishonest, almost, to a point, because look, I'm not going to pretend to know every the feelings of every black American, but I've met a lot of black Americans, and one thing I'm pretty confident in saying is that I would have a hard time believing that most of them, if any of them, would join a cult in the middle of Montana. Like, that's kind of a thing that most would be like shy away from. They would have something better to do. They would not have a lot of time, or wouldn't put a lot of trust in someone coming up, some white guy coming up and saying, come join my religion. That's just not, it's not realistic. And the only reason you put the black members in the cult is so that you can avoid some political point. It was an E3 build. It's not finished. And maybe these are stand-in characters from, they just had ready to go, to get the gameplay down, which is a thing that happens.
They'll be gone.
But I don't know. It was a weird thing to see. It was very, very disorienting from what I was expecting. I was expecting them actually to make that point, to say, this is a white supremacist group, and they do have like the black preacher, who is going to be a character in this game, who is one of the leaders of the resistance against the cult. So you're like, it's all set up right there, and then this undermines the point, and it feels like it's not going to take it seriously in the way that you described. Mafia 3 did a pretty admirable job at it.
That's profoundly disappointing.
Right. So we'll see how the game turns out, but. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, the thing is that these games are so infrequent at this point that we jump from Mafia 3 to Far Cry 5, and without much in between, at least on the AAA scale. So they make a big impact, and they are going to kind of define the conversation going forward. Hopefully, I'm hoping that in terms of race relations in games, and especially in terms of discussing American race relations, I hope Mafia 3 has the longer lasting impact than Far Cry 5, if it turns out like I've seen it so far.
And I hope we get some crazy game coming out on Steam where you're pulling down Confederate monuments around the country.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
that would be fun.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's a lot to be done there. I'd even play like a Twine game about how those monuments even got out in the first place, which apparently a lot of them were just like constructed cheaply and mass manufactured and put up in the last 70 years. So they aren't really that much of a history thing. So, yeah, there's definitely a lot of content there to be taken and to be discussed. Hopefully someone does it. Cool, guys. Any other games you'd like to mention Indiana Jones had a couple that he beat up some Nazis in some games. I like those. But
I've never played any of those LucasArts adventures. I've heard they're amazing.
Yep, I really do actually like the Indiana Jones ones. Yeah. But yeah, cool. I think that's going to wrap it up. I want to thank everyone for joining us. Before we head out, though, Anthony, why don't you tell everyone where they can find you on this here internet?
Everybody, you can find me on twitter.com at John Agnello. That's the indefinite article, John Agnello. And you can always find me manning the social wheels of steel for all of VentureBeat and GamesBeat. You should follow VentureBeat and GamesBeat on Twitter. It's just the names. And follow us on Facebook if you're watching us there and don't happen to follow us already.
Jason?
Well, you can find me on Twitter at Jason_Wilson, all lowercase. And you'll see my work every now and then when I have time to write on GamesBeat, but mostly you'll see me, editing everyone's work.
And I'm on Twitter at Jeff Grubb. You also get me on YouTube. I sometimes make some videos, youtube.com/Jeffrey Grubb. We're not streaming there this week, but normally we are on Twitch. If you could follow us on Twitch if you want to see some of our PUBG tournaments that we're going to be putting on Friday nights. I appreciate that. It was a really good time. You guys should join us. Otherwise, GamesBeat.com. And we'll see you next week.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you.